I am Dr. Riddhi Naringrekar, Associate Professor, Department of Veterinary Parasitology from Mumbai Veterinary College. And topic of today's webinar would be ectoparasites on small ruminants and its control strategy. So this presentation will include the common ectoparasites in the small ruminants, the control strategies for the ectoparasites. So these are the commonly encountered ectoparasites that are present on the small ruminants. To start with, we have ticks. The common species of ticks that are encountered on the small ruminants is Haemaphysalis, Hiloma, Rhiphicephalus, and Otubius, that is a soft tick. Then flies. So basically, we have the flies which are the permanent resident and the flies which act as a visitor. So we have the blowfly, which causes myiasis in sheep, the screwworm flies, and Melophagus ovinus, which is responsible for causing shipkid. The visitor flies are mosquitoes, culicoids, tabanis, and stomoxys, which will come for the blood meal. The mites, the mange mites that are responsible for causing mange in the small ruminants are the Sauroptis, Sarcoptes, Demodex, and Coreoptes species. Now, lice, these are again the permanent resident and they are very much host specific. So the lice that we find on sheep and goat is Bovicola, that is the Malinia species, and Linognathus, that is a sucking louse of small ruminant. And we also encounter flea on the small ruminant, and the flea belongs to the species Stenocephalidis felis. Coming to the harmful effects of ectoparasites on small ruminants, it causes skin irritation. This will reduce the productivity of the animal, and what we are more concerned is the disease transmission. So most of the ectoparasites, they are responsible for transmitting the vector-borne diseases in sheep and goat. Now let us see the impact of infestation, tick infestation in small ruminant. So ticks, they are hematophagous, we all know, and a female tick is sucking around 0.5 to 2 ml of blood. So if you can imagine the parasite load on the animal, so each tick is sucking around 0.5 to 2 ml blood, and if the the parasite burden is very high, this will result in blood loss, resulting in anemia. Now, the tick, they are, because of the tick bite, it will cause skin damage and tissue damage. They are responsible for transmitting the vector-borne parasites like babesiosis or anaplasmosis, theileriosis. Now, what the farmers are concerned is the production. Now, these ticks, they are responsible for the reduced weight gain. That is because, it causes irritation. So anorexia, which will lead to reduced weight gain. Poor quality of wool on milk production, and increase susceptibility to other diseases. So basically, apart from production, the economic loss is also affected because we are spending a lot of money in the control of tick measures. So the cost and control of tick measures, the veterinary treatment, have already mentioned that the ticks are responsible for transmitting the vector-borne diseases. So the treatment, it is also going to cost you. And ultimately, we've already covered the production loss. So this is going to overall impact the economy of the country. Now, before moving on to the control measures of tick, we should understand the life cycle of ticks. So the life cycle has 4 stages. You have the egg, the larva, the nymph, and the adult stage. Right? So based on the location, so when the larva hatches out from the egg, okay, so the larva then molds to nymph, so that is the first mold. Then the nymph is going to mold to adult, that is the second mold. So based on the location of the molds, we will classify it as a single host tick or one host tick, two host tick, and three host tick. So as the name goes, it is quite descriptive. So when I say one host, that means the larva, after hatching out from the egg, it goes and it attaches to the host, and the entire mold, larva to nymph and nymph to adult, will be on the same species or will be on the same host, same individual host. So that is a one host tick. Again, two hosts. That means the first mold, that is larva to nymph, will be on the host, and the second mold, that is nymph to adult, will be on the ground. So the larva goes attached to host number one. It sucks the blood, molds to nymph. Nymph is going to drop down and it will go into mold to adult. Okay. And this adult is going to go and attach to the new host. So there are two hosts in the life cycle. Now, when we are talking about the three host tick, that means it requires three hosts to complete its life cycle. So all the moles that are occurring, that is the larva, the nymph, and the adult, will be on the three different hosts. Okay, so that is the classification of the or rather, this is the biology of the ticks based on the location of the moles, and we should know this to control the tick life cycle or to interrupt the tick life cycle. Now, these are the control measures that we can adopt to control the tick infestation in small ruminants. So we all are aware of the chemical control method. There are a few biological control method, pasture management, tick-resistant breeds, then the environmental control, monitoring, and early detection. There's no vaccination that is available for small ruminants. We have vaccination, tick vaccine for large ruminants. Grooming and manual removal and quarantine of new animals and tick repellent product. We'll see each one by one. So talking about the chemical control, so you apply the acaricidyl. So acaricidyl can be applied, or the mode of application can be in form of sprays and dips. So this can be directly applied to the animal, and this chemical is going to kill the tick on contact. Next method of application is the pour-on. So it is applied on the back of the animal and it is absorbed, and this is slowly released. So when the tick bites, when the ticks, come for the hematophagous activity, it is going to kill the tick. The next method of acaricide application is dusting. So the acaricide is available in a powder form, and you just dust or you just sprinkle the acaricide on the body of the animal, particularly in the area where there is a heavy tick infestation. Now, these are the chemicals that are, used for the control of ticks. You have organochlorines. So organochlorines, dieldrin, lindane, it can be used at the rate of 0.1 to 1%. We have organophosphate, that is Comofos, malathion, dizion. Then we have the pyrethroids. So these are the synthetic pyrethroids. So we can go for deltamethrin, cypermethrin, or permethrin. And this can be used at the rate of 50 to 75 parts per million. And whenever you're using pyrethroids, make sure that you are using a fresh, you're reconstituting it. It has to be a freshly prepared solution. When you're mixing it with water, the water has to be a little warm, avoid direct sunlight. Discard if there is any leftover, do not use it for the next application. The next group of acaricidal is ivermectin. So we routinely use this drug, that is ivermectin, and it's an extremely wonderful drug. But let us keep it because there are no new chemical drugs that are introduced in the market, and we don't want to face the issue of resistance with the good drugs which are effective. Uh, Next is formamidines. So we have amitraz. So amitraz is available it is available in the concentration of 12.5%. So you use 12.5% amitraz, you take 4 ml of amitraz in 1 liter of water. Again, when you're using amitraz, it has to be a freshly reconstituted or freshly prepared solution. Discard any leftovers. Now, we've already discussed the method of acaricidal application in the previous slide. So that was dusting, dipping, spraying, and systemic use like for ivermectin. Now, depending on the classification of the tick, if it's a one host tick, you're going to apply the acaricidal only once a month. That is enough. If it's a two host tick, that means if there are two hosts involved in the life cycle, you have to use the acaricidal twice a month. That is once in fortnight. If it's a three host tick, then you will have to use the acaricidal solution every week. So in short, if I speak, okay, the control of single host tick is more easy than control of three host tick because we are, increasing the frequency of the acaricidal application. Now, uh, whatever dose of application that you are using on the animal, you just use the double concentration in the cracks and crevices because the life cycle stages, they are hiding in the cracks and crevices of the animal house. So just applying it on the animal is not going to help you. So you're going to use the double concentration of these acaricidal in the cracks and crevices of the animal house. And in case of resistance, change the group of acaricidal or use more frequently to kill the immature stages. So this is particularly true with the two and three host tick. So if it's a two or a three host tick, you have to increase the acaricidal application. The frequency has to be increased. Coming to the biological control, now we have entomopathogenic fungi, that is EPF. You have Beverna bassiana and Metrasium anisophilae. So this fungi, the powder is, commercially available. You can even get it on Amazon. It is that easily available. I think it's around 1 kg will cost you around 550 to 700 rupees per kg. So you have to follow the instructions given behind the packing, and you have to reconstitute it in water with some amount of jaggery or milk. And the mixture has to be sprayed on the in the cracks and crevices and in the animal house. You're not going to use this powder on the animal. Okay, and this is what it does to the tick. Next, there are certain predatory insects. These are wasps, parasitic wasps, which are parasitoid to the tick. So there are Ixidophagus hookeri, which is a parasitic wasp. You can see out over here, this is the wasp laying eggs on the tick. Okay, it's going to kill the tick. It is a parasite of the parasite. Next is the tick-eating birds. So this is not really practical, but yes, you can keep the birds fastered and then you can just let those birds loose in the infected pasture. So they are going to take care of your life cycle stages. So the tick-eating birds are chickens, guinea fowls, and ducks. You can just leave them on the infected pastures. Next is the bacteria, that is Bacillus thuringiensis. So this is the bacteria which is an inhabitant of a normal soil, and the culture of the bacteria is available commercially. So you just have to reconstitute it as per the instruction given, and you will have to spray it in the animal houses. Next method of tick control is pasture management. So you're going to see the life cycle stages of the ticks are on the pasture. Okay. So they cannot survive the host. They cannot survive without the host for a longer time. So you are going to rotate the pastures so that the ticks, the life cycle stages, they die of starvation. Then the pasture clearing. So the long weeds and grasses, you're going to cut it. So we all know the stages, the life cycle stages, they are there on the grass blade. So you're just going to cut that. And grazing with cattle. So basically, the literature says that, it is the small ruminants that get more infected with ticks rather than cattle. So you can graze the cattle alternatively on these pastures. We can also go for developing or rather breeding the resistant breeds that are tick resistant. So breeds such as Boer goat, they have shown some resistance to the tick and tick-borne diseases. So selective breeding can help to develop tick-resistant livestock. Again, it's better to start early. So regularly monitoring your animals, grooming your animals will help you control tick infestation before it goes out of your hand. When you've purchased a new animal, it is better to quarantine the new animal, keep it quarantined for around 3 to 4 weeks, and then introduce the new animal in your flock. The acaricidal, we cannot use the acaricidal application on the young animals. So the lambs and the kids below 3 months of age, you cannot use a acaricidal application. So there you can use eucalyptus oil or neem oil or citronella oil, which has proven efficacious. You can also use it on adult animals, no doubt. The next ectoparasite that I would be talking about is the mite infestation. So mites, we can categorize it as, depending upon the pathogenesis, we've classified it as follicular mites, burrowing mites, and the non-burrowing mites. Follicular mites is Demodex. Now, Demodex is a normal commensal of the skin. It's a normal inhabitant or it's a normal commensal of the skin. So when I say it's a normal commensal, why does it cause the pathogenesis? So basically, it is going to show the clinical signs when the immunity drops. So when there is immunosuppression, the there's multiplication of demodex. The clinical signs, you will see the clinical signs of demodecosis. So in a normal individual or in a normal animal or in a healthy animal, you will not see demodex. I mean, you will see, but it will not show any clinical signs. Next is the burrowing mite, that is Sarcoptes, which causes scabies. And the third category is the non-burrowing mites, so that is Sauroptes and Coreoptes. So this causes the scab. So these are also called as the scab mites. So these are the lesions that are produced by the mange mites. Control, you can go for the use of miticidal, but don't jump to, directly using a miticidal, because as I've already told you, see, Demodex is a commensal. That means it's a normal inhabitant. So probably giving a supportive care to the animal can help you, reduce, or it will help uh, take care of the infection. So if it's a localized infection, rather than using the spray or the dips, just let us just go for the topical application. We can use sulfur lime or rotenine ointment. The best thing is to use, see, for Demodex, as I've already told you, it is caused because of immunosuppression. Okay. And in case of Demodex, it's a general tendency of any veterinary practitioner to give a corticosteroids because there is a severe itching. So in Demodex, if you do that, unless you've identified the parasite, it is going to aggravate the symptoms. So diagnosis is most important. So don't jump into any treatment before you've diagnosed the mange mites. Okay. Supportive care, you're going to give supportive care. So you are going to keep the animal stress free. You're going to provide the proper plane of nutrition. Uh, Immunosuppression can also be because of the physiological stress. So just help reduce the stress from the animal. Probably it will take care of the infection. Also, environmental management. These mites, basically, you have to, again, with the application of the acaricide on the animal, you also have to destroy the stages which would be present in the bedding material in the fodder. So the animal houses should also be taken care of when you're applying the acaricide and prevention. So avoid overcrowding, which may result in the mange infection. Lice, these are the permanent parasites. They cannot leave away from the host for a longer time. They are very much host specific. So the lice that we see on small ruminants is Linognathus and Damalinia. Damalinia is a biting louse. Linognathus is a sucking louse. Biting louse, it feeds on the debris. And sucking louse, they basically suck the blood. They feed on the blood. So basically, lice, in case of sheep, you shear the sheep, 90% of the infection will be taken care of. So again, management is very important for the control of lice, early detection. Regular grooming will help you. As I've already told you, you shear the animal and around 90 to 95% infection would be taken care of. Uh, Lice, it is basically do not stay away from the host. So, prevent overcrowding. That will also help you control the lice infestation. Now, the organic and natural options that are available is diatomaceous earth. So, this is going to kill the lice. You just apply the powder, apply the diatomaceous earth, and that is going to kill the lice. Essential oils like neem oil, currant oil, or eucalyptus oil can be helpful for the control of lice infestation. And the same group of insecticide that we've discussed in the previous slide, we can use the same group of insecticides if you want, if you have to go for a chemical treatment. Next is myiasis, which is a big trouble for the sheep farmers. Myiasis is nothing but invasion of the tissue by the egg or larvae of diphtherin fly. So this is nothing but it causes the maggot wound on the animal. So sheep are particularly susceptible to myiasis because of their thick wool, and the wool and the season. Okay, this is the ideal environment, or this is the ideal breeding ground for the maggots. So even if there are no wounds, the flies get attracted. There are different flies which causes myiasis. You have it's a strike that occurs. So you have the primary fly, the secondary fly, and the tertiary fly, and they have a typical pattern that they follow, and it's a very organized pattern. So basically, the primary flies come, they create the conducive conditions for the secondary flies, and they go more deeper, they create wounds. So basically, wool is the medium that provides the breeding ground for these flies. So moist wool or smeared wool is going to attract the flies, and they're going to come and lay the eggs, and then the secondary fly comes, and the primary flies have already created a good condition for the secondary flies. So blowfly myiasis is obligatory in sheep, and we have screwworm flies. So these are the maggots that are caused in other animals. So in goats, you will have the screwworm fly myiasis. Now, how do you control myiasis? So basically, it's prevention. It's the proper hygiene. So as in the previous slide, we've already seen. See if the wool is smeared of the or if the wool is wet, that is going to attract the flies. So you're going to keep proper hygiene. So if it's a fly season, it's better to shear the animals so that you don't provide any breeding ground for the flies to breed. Okay. Then the wound management. So if there is any wound, just uh, just avoid the fly laying the eggs in that wound, or just avoid any planned surgery if it is there. You don't create any wounds. So that is how you prevent the myiasis. Then control of the fly population, you can use fly traps, you can use fly repellents, and treatment is removal of the maggots. The next is sheepkid. This is the wingless fly. So when it is wingless, obviously it is there present 24/7 on the body of the animal, right? So these flies, they are bloodsuckers and they can lead to severe symptoms like itching, scratching. So because of itching and scratching, there will be hair loss, there will be wool damage. It is hematophagous, so it causes anemia. Because of, the animal is scratching, so it is going to cause skin lesions. Even because of the bite, it is going to cause skin lesions, and that is going to ultimately reduce the growth and productivity of the animal. Now, the best thing is it's a permanent parasite. It does not move away from the host. So you just apply a best thing is to first is to shear the wool. So Melophagus ovinus is a pupiparous fly. So it lays larvae in a very advanced stage of development, and larvae after they are laid, they are immediately converted to pupae. So shearing will remove many pupae in adults which are present on the animals. So basically, after shearing, you're going to treat the animal with a organophosphate. So organophosphate is known to have a residual effect. So that can last for, around 3 to 4 weeks. So that is the best treatment that we can go for control of shipkid. Next is a flea infestation. Now, the flea is not very much host specific. So the flea that is uh, present on the small ruminants is generally the cat flea. Occasionally, you may even find the other fleas, like you may even find the dog flea or the poultry flea, that is Echidnophaga. So the flea that we find on sheep or goat, it is Tinocephalidis fellis. So fleas are responsible for hair loss. They are responsible for skin lesions. They cause anemia, itching, scratching. Now, this is a flea dirt that you see in the wool of the infected sheep. Flea dirt is nothing but the feces of the feces of the flea. So along with the feces, you see the blood stain. So this reduces the quality of wool. So there's depreciation in the quality of wool. Now, talking about the chemical treatments. So basically, the life cycle stages of the flea, it lays eggs in the cracks and crevices of the animal house. Sometimes it even lay eggs on the animal body. So basically, controlling or cleaning the environmental control is going to help you to control the flea. Chemical treatment we've already discussed in the previous slide, so we can use the same chemicals that we've used before. So basically, environmental control, you're going to clean the bedding and the barns, disinfecting the housing areas, that is the outdoor control. So if the animal graze outdoor, treat the pasture or the grazing area with insecticidal, that is dusting or spraying will help in control the flea affected area, and this can reduce the contamination, the environmental contamination. The natural and alternative methods are diatomaceous earth, and we can also go for herbal repellent like the neem oil, eucalyptus oil, or lavender oil. Next is rotational grazing management, that is rotate the grazing areas. Pasture mowing. So you just cut the pasture or cut the long grasses that are there, that will help reduce the burden, and removal of manure regularly. So these are known to be the breeding places, or these are known to be the places where the life cycle stages of these parasites are present. So we are just going to eliminate the life cycle. We are just going to eliminate the breeding places of the parasite. Now, these are the commonly used ectoparasital in small ruminants. So I know we've already discussed this, but we should also know the mechanism of action. So basically, we've been telling that, avoid using the same group of ectoparasital, or avoid using the same ectoparasital or the acaricidal, which has the same mechanism of action. For example, when I'm talking about organophosphate, it inhibits the enzyme acetylcholine esterase. Okay. The same mechanism of action is with carbamates. So if the parasite is resistant to organophosphate, it will be also resistant to carbamate. So it's better to switch on to some other group of acaricide. The challenges in control of ectoparasites of small ruminants. The biggest challenge that we are facing today is development of resistance. So in the previous slide, I've already told you there are a lot of resistance which have been developed against organophosphate. There are resistance developing against pyrethroids. Even there are reports of resistance against ivermectin, amitraz, and there's no new drug in the market. So we have to manage with the existing compounds or the existing drugs that are available. So basically, we have to use these drugs very cautiously. Okay, so there's development of resistance in the same group. There's development of cross resistance. So basically, there are reports of cross resistance that have developed against dialtrin, that is organochlorine, and fipronil. Then there is resistance that is reported against organochlorine and synthetic pyrethroid. There's resistance that is reported against organophosphate and carbaryl. Okay. So basically, you are going to, we have to avoid this resistance so that we can use the treatment effectively. We'll see to it in the next slide. Uh, Environmental factors. So in a hot and humid country like India, this is a very favorable breeding ground for the parasites. Humidity attracts, or humidity helps the parasite to propagate. So it is the climatic condition, the weather condition of our country that is favorable for these growth of the parasite. Again, pasture management. So basically, we don't have something called as pasture land like we have in the Western country. There's no land that is kept for growing the pastures. So this is not for our case. Again, the challenge is the cost. Cost of treating the ectoparasite can significantly increase due to repeated treatment. I've already told you that in case of ticks, for example, you have a single host tick, you have two host tick, you have three host tick. So if it's a single host, it just requires one application. But if it's a three host tick that is infected, that the animal is infected with, you will have to repeat the application every week. So obviously that is going to increase your treatment cost because it is going to need higher doses. Um, Again, the biggest challenge is the knowledge, the lack of knowledge. The farmers may lack knowledge about the ectoparasites and the life cycle. So basically, if you know the life cycle of the parasite, you know where to intervene, where to interrupt the life cycle. Okay. So basically, it is not just application of whatever application of compounds to the animal, it is also destroying their breeding places so that they don't infect your animal. Okay. So that is the knowledge that has been lacking and which needs to be addressed for the control of the ectoparasites. Now, strategies to overcome the challenges of ectoparasital resistance in small ruminants. Now, this requires a multifaceted approach that integrates with a good management practice, strategic use of drug, and research-based solution. So there's something called as integrated pest management or integrated parasite management. So instead of using the drug at the first stands, you are going to you're going to do the manipulation in the management so that the parasite loads reduces. So basically, with the integrated parasite management or integrated pest management, you're going to rotate the drugs that you use. Okay, so different class of drugs different class of ectoparasite should be used. You switch between the products with different mechanism of action. So even if you are using a different class, it should have a different mechanism of action, which will reduce the risk of resistance, or we are just going to extend the resistance for over a period of few years now. Uh, Targeted treatment. Targeted treatment means if you have a flock, just treat the animal that is infected. Don't treat the entire flock. Don't no need to, make the parasite exposed to the sublethal dose. Okay, it is the sublethal dose that will develop the resistance. So just treat the infected animal. Don't treat the entire flock. So that is the targeted treatment. Use of non-chemical methods like grooming, shearing, or use of biological controls like predatory insects, nematodes that targets the ectoparasites. The next point is the judicious use of ectoparasites. So adhere to the recommended doses. Don't overdose the animal. That is not going to kill more parasite. In fact, it will be lethal to, or it will be detrimental to your animal. It may kill the animal rather than killing the parasite. It is not going to kill more parasite if you use overdose, right? So just stick to a recommended dose. Don't underdose the animal, because if you're underdosing the animal, you're exposing the parasite to a sublethal dose, which helps to develop resistance. Apply at the correct time. So this, if you know the life cycle, if you know to interrupt the life cycle, you have to use this strategy to exploit the binomics of the parasite. Okay, so you have to apply at the correct time. The ectoparasiticidal has to be applied at the correct time. Improving the diagnostic practices, so accurate identification. Like I've given you the example in case of mange mites. So it is the same drug that can be used. Some clinician also try to give ivermectin for Demodex. It is not actually required, and it is a drug of choice for scabies, right? You have to give ivermectin for scabies, but in scabies, you also have to use a corticosteroids. But if I use a corticosteroids in Demodex, instead of curing the animal, it is going to aggravate the infection. Okay, so a proper identification, a right diagnosis is very important in controlling the parasite. Now, this is something which is, it has to be researched upon. So basically, there should be a routine survey that should be done on the resistant testing in that particular area. So this is basically survey-based practice. Then monitoring and surveillance, access the prevalence of resistance. Okay. Now, surveillance can help detect early resistance, and it can and adjust the control program. So I've detected that this particular drug, XYZ drug, is showing resistance to say ticks in this particular area. I can change the control program. I can change the drug. Okay, so that is going to help in overcoming the control measures. Use of alternative methods like the biological control utilizing the natural predators of the ectoparasites, the physical control. So with the ectoparasite, especially with the sheep, it is going to take care of most of the infections out over there. So regular grooming, shearing, cleaning the animal houses can reduce the parasitic load to a great extent. Use of genetic resistance. So select and breed the animals that are naturally resistant to ectoparasite. Educational programs for the farmers. So educate the farmers and the livestock handlers on the risk of over relying on parasiticide and on the importance of sustainable treatment practice. Adopt best practice, that is promote the adoption of integrated control strategies among the farmers and encourage collective management efforts, especially in the communities with high parasite burden. So basically, if I see ectoparasite infection, see the group of ectoparasiticide is almost the same. It would be same for ticks, same for lice, same for flies, right? So at first stage, if I encounter any infection, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to manipulate with some managemental practices, see if, the infection is under control. If not, if even if at using the ectoparasite would be my last option. Okay, so try using, you can intervene with the managemental practice. You can go for the biological control. If it is not working, then you use the chemical treatment. With the chemical treatment also, I would rather go for, treatment with synthetic pyrethroids. Then I would, use amitraz, or I would go for ivermectin. That would never be my first choice because these are very excellent drugs that we have in the market. And as I've already told, there's no new drug that is available. So we have to use this drug very cautiously. So let us save these drugs. So these are some do's and don'ts. I've almost covered everything in the slides, so I'll just read it out for you. Always use the recommended dosage for chemicals. Using high concentration will not kill more parasite. Instead, it may kill the animal and make the operator ill. Take the following precautions during applications of chemicals. Apply pesticides only as directed on the labels. Do not spray animal in confined or non-ventilated area. Do not dip the animal when thirsty or overheated. Water animal well before treatment so they do not drink the wet fluid. Do not contaminate the feed or drinking water. Do not apply insecticide on sick animal or animal under stress. Do not apply pesticide or insecticide on lambs or kids less than 3 months of age. Do not treat sheep and goat just before the slaughtering. Check the time interval recommended for that particular pesticide. Uh, taking Take care not to damage the environment. Do not pour into rivers, ponds, any unused solution or dip content. Dip content can be drained into pits. The pit should be at least 150 meters away from the water sources, and clean the sprayers immediately after use. That's it from my end. Thank you.